Men especially, we like to talk about football and we like to talk about what's on the telly and all of that sort of good stuff, but when it comes to showing our emotions and our weaknesses, I think we struggle, don't we? I think we find that a challenge. Well, I personally find that a challenge to talk about my emotions.
Welcome to My Life with Dementia, a podcast from Dementia UK. I'm Kula Bikini. After losing my dad to vascular dementia, I wanted to share stories of other families who are facing dementia and finding a way through it. So in this series, you'll hear how people are adjusting to life with dementia or the loss of a loved one, and how Dementia UK specialist Admiral Nurses can be there for you in the toughest moments. If this is your first time listening, welcome. You can find a link to Dementia UK's helpline in the show description and a wealth of information in every episode. If you're joining us again, welcome back. This is a conversation between Tommy and Andrew. Both of them have lived in and around Liverpool for most of their lives, and they met through Dementia UK. Tommy was diagnosed with young onset Alzheimer's disease in 2011, when he was 58. He lives with his wife Joyce, who he met when they were both 16. And Andrew is a carer for his mum, Anne, who has vascular dementia and now lives in a care home. Tommy and Andrew spent an afternoon in one of their local pubs where they talked about navigating the emotional ups and downs of living with dementia. In particular, how expectations around masculinity have affected their experiences. For example, Tommy often goes to dementia support groups, but he rarely gets the chance to speak openly about dementia outside of those spaces.
This is the first time I've ever spoke about this in a pub. I mean, no one's ever asked me about it before, because men don't like talking about this. If you don't talk about something, how are people going to learn about it?
Absolutely. If it's not out there, people can't talk about it, we can't learn, we can't help to cure it, can we? Absolutely. So my mum was a dementia as well, so I've been caring for my mum with Joe, my wife, as well, for quite a number of years now. My sister and my dad as well, who passed away last year, so...
So, when your mum got your diagnosis, how did that affect you, and how did that make you feel?
That's a really good question, actually. I've been thinking about that quite a lot recently, Tommy. So mum's diagnosis was during COVID, so it was over the telephone, which wasn't the greatest way of doing things. We got given the diagnosis, and then it was like, well, off you go then. Here's a pamphlet, read the pamphlet, or go on the internet, and that'll help you. And you just left with a cancer diagnosis, very clear pathway. Any other diagnosis, very clear pathway. We were just, as a family, just spinning around in circles, not knowing who to go to. How do we get, like, COVID wasn't helping, but how do we get assistance? How do we get help? And I think the real realisation for me was when I saw my dad in tears one day through the doorway. And that was the realisation that we were just spiralling all over the place. We were in free fall and so on. So when we got that phone call, and they phoned me, like I say, during COVID, I didn't have a clue what it was. I just thought it was, oh, she's getting old and forgetful. I fell into that trap, I'll be honest with you. And then I sort of sat on it for a couple of days and then tried to interact with my family about it and tried to say, like, you know, what does this really mean? And we're all pretty much in the same situation. Our interaction with dementia had been very, very limited. Thankfully, been very, very limited. So it was just about trying to find information and understand, what does this word mean? What does dementia mean to us? And we spent I personally spent a long time, the family spent a long time, trying to understand what this meant and what this meant for mum and meant for us as a family dynamics and so on. So we just free-falled for ages, just spinning around without being able to find the information we needed. We were fortunate though, because we hit upon Admiral Nurses.
Dementia UK's Admiral Nurses are specialist dementia nurses. They offer free advice and support to people living with dementia and their families and carers.
So one of the lifelines we got was an Admiral Nurse from Dementia UK, and that it took us out of free fall. It didn't put us on a straight road, but it put us on more of a pathway towards where we need to go to. So what about yourself?
I didn't believe I had it, you know, but I was in denial, obviously, because you don't believe you got dementia, because you think, how come I can still think? How come I can still talk? My daughter denied it at first. She wouldn't talk about it. My son never mentioned the word. They didn't mention the word, and it was, oh, yeah, right, Dad, you're there. But never sat down and said, what's it like, you know, how do you do, or let's put everything in place, you know. And no one really spoke openly about it, you know. It was, I could hear them talking in the other room about it, but if I went in or that, it was like a...
Change subject.
After his diagnosis, Tommy noticed things changing in his GP appointments. The doctor wouldn't speak to him anymore, but always looked to Tommy's wife, Joyce, instead. And he thinks it might be down to the lack of training about dementia at medical schools.
What really surprised me was, I gave a talk to some doctors once, and they said, we don't know about dementia. All we do about it is a little piece of this, when we're training.
Yeah.
And they didn't know much
just
about
one module in the course.
And I thought, well, I just assumed they knew everything about it. So it is specialist. And that's where those Admiral Nurses are a godsend. They're absolutely great.
We found as well with Admiral Nurses, so this was the dynamic we were in. So I started to accept it. I was still fighting against it, but I started to accept it.
Yeah.
And then my dad and my sister, they fought against it. So they wouldn't use the word. They wouldn't say the dementia word, the D word. Mum was just forgetful, or, she was getting old. But they started to ask questions. So I started to see a change. I started to see them. They went from complete denial into denial, but a little bit of questions coming through. Yeah. But they wouldn't take my answers as being the fact. Okay, they would listen to somebody in the street and take their answers as being fact. Yeah. So I got all the information from the Admiral Nurses, and then relayed it through and said, this has come from somebody. Nice. It's not from me, and it worked. So they wouldn't engage with the Admiral Nurse direct. Yeah. They wouldn't engage with me, but via this weird sort of smoke and mirrors effect, we managed to start to bring them round to actually what dementia is and what this means for us as a family. So they were a lifeline, I must admit, because from my perspective, I was trying to hold the family together. Yeah. And I felt I was failing because I couldn't get the family to come together and accept the fact where Mum was with dementia and so on.
For both Tommy and Andrew, dementia brought up new emotions. And neither of them was really used to sharing those kind of feelings with their family and friends.
I think men especially, it's one of those things we like to talk about football and we like to talk about what's on the telly and all of that sort of good stuff. But when it comes to showing our emotions and our weaknesses, I think we struggle, don't we? I think we find that a challenge. Well, I personally find that a challenge to talk about my emotions.
People don't realise the heartbreak of dementia, and when you're talking about it, it's really, really raw, isn't it? Yeah. But you've got to talk about it, because if you bottle it up, it'll just weigh you down. I mean, when I was diagnosed with dementia, I felt at the lowest point in my life. And I thought, that's the end of the world. We feel as if you've got to tough it up, and especially in front of your mates, you couldn't say, I've had a terrible day, I feel as if I can't go on anymore, because they say, it's your mum, you've got to look after it. And I think it's just something you can pull yourself up, don't be...
Yeah, pull yourself together.
As if you could do that, you'd do it every day, but you can't, it's like when people talk about people with depression, pull yourself together. They don't realise that, people with dementia and the carers get depression and anxiety more than anyone. Absolutely. Because you're under a great strain all the day. I mean, every day I feel as if I've run a marathon, because it's like being on a treadmill. Yep. And I've run and run and run all day, and I've used all that energy, but I've stayed in the same spot. So you've got to fight and fight and fight. And it's the same for the care, and people don't realise it, that they've got to do the caring part, and then they've got a life and family as well outside.
That's it.
So it's more so. There's a lot of fear in dementia, and you'll have felt it as soon as you heard the word. You'll have felt fear. You fear for the worst.
I think as men, we're fearful of being fearful, in my opinion. So if we don't know about something, it frightens us. It's like, hang on, what do we do? So if something frightens us, I'm speaking personally, we ignore it, we step away from it, and we go, well, don't want to worry about that. Let's go and talk about something over there that's more important, or I'm not frightened about. And I think dementia, from the things you've said as well, about how people treat people with dementia, creates that fear. And I think then as men are fearful of fear, we step away from it, and we don't talk about it, it's not going to hurt us.
Even though Tommy has a good group of male friends, they never bring up his dementia.
They'll talk about football, drink, golf.
Yeah, but not dementia.
They'll never mention it. Don't even say, how's your dementia? Or if they said to me, how are you today? That's just a general, I'm okay. Yeah. There's days when I'm at the rock bottom, and I just cannot pull myself up off the floor. I just don't want to get out of bed. I just don't want to. I feel as if the weight of the world's pushing on my shoulders, and I'm thinking, please let this day be over, and I know I'll be all right tomorrow.
Yeah. So I suppose if your mates at the golf just one day just asked how are you and just listen, then what I'm hearing is that might actually help you, or will help you massively, because there's someone there you can turn around and say, well, I'm really good today, lads, or actually I'm not too good today. And having that insight. Again, it goes back to men not wanting to talk about things, isn't it? Not wanting to do this.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, well, if one of the men had said it, they'd go, oh, you'd be all right, though.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. There's a pill for that.
Let's move on. Let's move on, because, as you say, this is a great opportunity to actually talk about it here in the pub, you know.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know,
absolutely.
This is talking with someone who's got empathy with me rather than sympathy, because, you know, that makes a big difference. Some people go, you know,
put your arm around you, you'll be okay.
Want someone to understand what I'm saying, you know what I'm saying? Not just, oh, it's horrible, to know why it is horrible.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know, I know it's horrible for you as a carer, and I know why it's horrible for you as a carer, because I know I can sometimes say things to the wife and regret it, you know, but she'll just walk out the room and come back now, and it's gone.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if she dwelled on it, it must probably escalate and be...
Yeah. We had that problem with my dad, so like I say, he passed away last year, but he always tried to fight dementia. So when mum was, you know, whatever she was doing that was annoying him or upsetting him especially, he wouldn't, instead of walking out the room and just letting things just calm down, he would fight it, he would try to make it better. And it just did this and just escalated and escalated and escalated. And he just could never understand that walking away is the better thing to do. He always wanted to try and, well, if I give your mum, I call her mam, if I give your mam a tablet, or if we give her this, or if we do that, that'll fix it, won't it? And it's like, it's not going to fix it, Dad, I'm afraid. No, we need to... And that battle, he had that to his dying day. He could never understand the fact that, well, if you have a cold, you take a paracetamol and you feel a bit better. Give her a tablet and she'll be better. And me and my dad clashed over this, because very strong-willed personalities, and he was coming at it from the, we can fix this. And I was coming at it from the, we can't fix it. And I was trying to, I was struggling to understand why he couldn't see my point of view. And he was doing the exact same back to us. So we clashed, and even to the dying day, we were clashing over things because of it. Dementia caused these things. I do feel, though, that over time, he started to understand, he started to come round. But he was of an older generation, he was a pre-war baby, you know, so he was part of that older generation. And it never got through to him. And it did cause a split between father and son, which I'm sure he wasn't proud of, I'm definitely not proud of. But hopefully, from us talking like this, if someone can hear us in here now today, you know, they may think, actually, I'll go and talk to my dad a bit different, or I'll go and talk to my son a bit different, or my daughter a bit differently, and so on. I think that's a...
I mean, if I ever tell anyone about dementia, I always say, you've got to think of it as a battery. I said, you've got a negative and a positive. If you have a torch, you need a negative and a positive end to put the battery in, and for the torch to shine brightly. If it's all positive, it's not going to work.
Not going to work.
If it's all negative, it's not going to work. So you're going to have negative days, you're going to have positive days. And you've just got to know when the switch is off. When it's a good day, switch your torch on. When it's a bad day, let him have a rest.
Absolutely. Just let it,
Do you have those feelings about feeling guilty about, are you doing enough or anything?
Absolutely. So I felt guilty that I couldn't give my dad the magic tablet that was going to fix dementia. I feel guilty that when I leave the care home, that I'm leaving my mum behind, that it's like I almost feel like I have to make an excuse sometimes to leave, like she'll fall asleep and say, oh, should we go then? And I feel guilty about that, but you can only be there for so many hours and you can only do so many things, if that makes sense. But I feel the guilt that comes with that, absolutely. And then I feel the guilt that puts on my family, because I know at times I'm not the same person because I'm so frustrated by dementia. So guilt, it's there all the time. It's almost like a shadow that you're trying to run away from, but it has this tendency to catch up, and sometimes it envelop you as well if you're not careful. What about yourself?
It's something I feel every day, most probably every minute of every day. It's the guilt of what I've taken away from my family, of what I've taken away from my son, my daughter, my grandchild, my wife. I feel as if it's my fault, and I know it's not my fault. You know, and I know I didn't go out to get it, but I still feel guilty about losing all the things I've lost for them, and I wish I could make that right.
I think from a dad's perspective as well, and I spoke quite a lot about my dad. he wanted this cure, he wanted it to be fixed. And that moment of moving from the family home into the first care home, the amount of guilt that he carried was, as far as he was concerned, he'd broken the vow that he'd given, which was in sickness and in health. And again, that was, and I then felt guilty because I was the person that arranged the care home. So I had the guilt of putting the guilt on him, if that makes sense, which was like this weird sort of triangle of guilt, if you like. So I think if we can talk about it though, maybe that helps with the guilt, that helps with the grieving.
Since Andrew's mum was diagnosed in 2020, he's experienced a form of grief that's very common when a loved one has dementia. It's called rolling grief, or anticipatory grief. It's a feeling of grief that comes before someone dies, grieving the changes in their personality or abilities, and the awareness that, with no cure for dementia, the journey will ultimately lead to their death.
So my dad, as I mentioned, he died last April, and obviously I grieved for my dad because he died, right? He was there and he died. And it was only during that process that I realised that I'd probably spent the previous 12 to 18 months grieving for my mum. And I didn't realise it. It didn't hit me in the face. It wasn't like, she was still there, I could go and visit her, I can still visit her today. But she wasn't the same mum that prior to dementia, and especially where she is now on her journey. So it was only when I started to realise like the physical grief through my dad dying that I'd been grieving for my mum for quite a long time, and I still do today, if I'm honest with you. She's still here, and I hate to say it that I grieve because she's still alive and I can still go and see her. She's still around, but I do grieve that old mum, if you like, the mum prior to dementia. Does that resonate with you, Tommy? Or
I grieve for a lot of things. I grieve for what I've robbed my wife of. I feel as if I've robbed her of her independence. I grieve that I'm not the husband that I should be, I want to be. I grieve for the love that I don't show. I grieve for the person I was. I really miss the person I was. You know, it seems strange, but I feel as if I've been transported into a different dimension and I'm not in my right dimension. I grieved when they took away my driving licence because it was the start of losing your independence because I wasn't able to take her where I wanted to go. I grieved that I had to lose my job, that I had to lose the house we'd worked all our lives for. And she says, I'm happy here now, but I know her heart's broke because it was her dream. And I remember when, 54 years ago when we got married, we used to promise ourselves, one day we'll have a car, and one day we'll have a washing machine, and one day we'll have and we dreamt of like that for years and years and years. And then when we finally got it, we were so happy. And then when this came along, and it was just like, I could feel her grief. And I would grieve for the way she has to put on a brave face.
All these feelings are a normal part of anticipatory grief. And Andrew's dad was most likely experiencing this type of grief himself, even if he didn't know how to express it.
There's no doubt my dad died of a broken heart. They've been married for so long, 64 years, 65 years. Yeah. And then he spent 4 years of that journey just grieving for her, missing her. Yeah. I remember going around one time, and my dad was like a pre-war baby. He'd been in the army, he owned pubs, so he'd been in, scrapes with people, as you do. Yeah. Big man, big personality, and just broke down crying and said, I can't do this anymore. I can't cope. Yeah. And he couldn't handle the fact that he was grieving. He couldn't process it. He couldn't understand because my mum was still around. She still is around. Yeah. He just couldn't handle it, and there's no doubt he died of that broken heart because he couldn't fix it.
That's why I always say, don't try and go through dementia on your own because it'll take you down straight away. And when you have to put someone in a home, you feel as if you let them down and you've broken the promise that you've met. My wife said, "I'll never put you in a home," but I said to her, if it ever comes that you can't cope, don't, because I don't want you to go down that way. I said, it's always my biggest fear to be put in a home, but I said, don't let it take you down because of
absolutely. I think it's fighting dementia is a team sport. You can't do it on your own.
The more help and support you've got, the much better. What do you do most days, like, you know, just to cope?
That is a really good question. I think I spend a lot of the time thinking about mum before dementia. So I spend a lot of time thinking about just before her diagnosis, mum and dad renewed the wedding vows. So I think it was 56 years they'd been married at the time when they renewed the vows. And I spend a lot of time thinking about that day, because the mum that I saw on that day was the mum that I want to remember, if that makes sense, before dementia. But then I also know that I've now got my mum with dementia as well. So I try to balance the two. I try to balance, again, going back to the Andrew, not so much the son, but the carer on one side, dealing with the escalations and the best interests, but then also thinking about when it was Andrew and mum, and it was the joyful time, if you like, as well. So I think that balancing act it's difficult. It's not easy. I'm not saying that as I want a medal for that, but it's hard. It's hard to balance the two worlds, and sometimes they collide. Sometimes they live in harmony, but sometimes they collide as well.
Living in a place with the musical legacy of Liverpool, it's probably no surprise that Tommy and Andrew have both found music to be another really important coping mechanism for life with dementia.
I find that music is one of the greatest therapies. How does your mum cope with music?
So my mum and dad, they used their own pubs. So I grew up in pubs, which is probably why we're now sat in a pub, Tommy. And obviously they'd have live bands on, they'd have the jukeboxes and so on, with the old records on and so on. And my mum was Northern Soul, Johnny Cash, even the mod movement as well. She was into the mod movement and so on, Small Faces and the Who and so on. So I've grown up on the back of that. So I've seen my mum just embrace music. It's always helped her through. She lived with breast cancer. All the way through that, music was the sort of almost like a medicine, if you like, I suppose, is a way to describe it. And she, even today now, if she hears a piece of music she recognises, she won't be able to recognise that it was Johnny Cash, for example, or it was the Small Faces, but she recognises the music. You'll see her body language, you'll see her calm down, especially if she's anxious, she'll calm right down. And I think it's a real healer. It's not a piece of medication. It's not some form of research or anything like that that's going to help. But it's just a way of just calming her down, and it really soothes her. And you can just see it in her face that she's enjoying it, and it brings, hopefully, it's bringing back memories that of happier times for her, back to when she had the pubs and so on.
I find that people with dementia tend to have more of a sense of humour. Humour is one of the greatest things, because it releases the endorphins and makes you feel good. So you've got the feel good factor. So you've got music that makes you feel good, laughter which makes you feel good. Absolutely. So why wouldn't you use it all the time? Absolutely. Have you found that with your mum?
My mum, absolutely. So my mum was married very young, so she met my dad when she was 17, whirlwind romance. She got told by her dad that the last 6 months, and she'd be knocking on the door. 60 odd years later, they were still married. But she was, as a result of that, she fell into this sort of pattern of being traditional marriage, sort of man and woman. Man goes out to work, woman brings up the children and so on. So as a result, she was a funny person. She had a good sense of humour. She would say funny things, and she would do funny things. But then it's almost like dementia flicked this comedy switch on at one point in time. And she'd just start telling these jokes that you're like, where's that come from? Because 2 years ago, you wouldn't have told that joke. Some of them are obscene. We can't repeat them in front of everyone in this pub. But it just flicked this switch that she was coming out with funny things. She'd say funny things. And that really helped us to balance, especially as a family. We were like, well, let's not focus much on the negative, going back to the battery. Let's focus on the positive coming out of it. So if anything, it brought out this funny person that remains today. So let's play a little game, Tommy. So we'll walk out, right? We'll cross over the road, and we'll come back in. And when we come back in, our younger selves will be sat in these two chairs. What would be the piece of advice you would give to your younger self stood there now, sat there? What would you say to your younger self?
I would say, don't be afraid. It's not as bad as you think it's going to be. If you've got the strength to face it, you can make it better. Go and help other people. That's the best way to help yourself. You've got to go and help people. Don't put fear into people's minds. Don't tell people it's going to be a horrible thing, or it's the end of the world. I've had a good life. I'm enjoying my life. It's a different life. Maybe not the life I would have wanted, but it's a life. It's my life, and that's it. It's my life. I've got control over it at the moment. You know, dementia's not controlling me.
Yeah.
And I'd say, tell your wife every day you love it.
Absolutely. I think I think love's a really important thing to mention. Again, men don't talk about love, do we? Because it's like, no, we don't talk about love. No. I think if I was to, piece of advice to my younger self would be to tell my mum that I loved her, because I still don't do it enough today. And those of you I don't do it enough. Yeah, I think very similar to what you'd say to your younger self would be, love those around you and tell them that you love them. Yeah. But live your life, absolutely. Yeah, 100%.
Thank you, Tommy and Andrew, for sharing such a candid conversation in a public setting. If you're in a similar situation to Tommy and Andrew, you may find our next episode especially useful. Dementia UK Admiral Nurses Hilda and Vic dive deeper into some of the themes that came out in the episode, offering advice from their perspectives as specialist dementia nurses. Hilda and Vic's episode will be out 2 days after this one, so look out for it in your podcast feed. This has been an episode of My Life with Dementia, a podcast from Dementia UK. Please subscribe in your podcast app to get new episodes as soon as they come out. And if you've enjoyed this episode, why not share it with someone you think might find it useful? You can take a look at the show notes for a link to our support services, which include online resources, ways to contact Dementia UK helpline, and information about Admiral Nurse clinics. Thank you so much for listening.